Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a genuinely cinematic, high-stakes corporate survival story. Now, if you grew up in the 80s or 90s, Panasonic was probably a defining fixture in your daily life, right? I mean, it was the brand that bathed millions of living rooms in the warm glow of cathode ray tube TVs. But the company behind that deeply nostalgic name has quietly pulled off one of the most drastic transformations in modern business history. So think about this. What happens when the very products that made you famous no longer guarantee your survival? For decades, Panasonic was the absolute king of the consumer household. They built the stereos, the VCRs, the microwaves, the massive televisions that our living rooms were literally centered around. But then, the world just shifted violently underneath them. They woke up to an absolute existential crisis. They had to make a choice, cling to a decaying empire and fight a losing battle, or completely, and I mean painfully, reinvent their entire corporate DNA. And the contrast between what they were and what they are today is just staggering. In the old world, they dealt in televisions, point-and-shoot cameras, everyday home appliances. It was cozy. It was retail. But look at the new world they stepped into. We're talking EV batteries, smart factories, complex logistics, aviation. It is a sleek, cold, incredibly high-stakes industrial reality. Panasonic realized they had to abandon the living room and make a massive, risky leap right into the sprawling gigafactories and supply chains of the future. Act 1. The Consumer Electronics Trap. You see, the consumer electronics space turned from a golden goose into a brutal, unforgiving battlefield. The trap was closing in from all sides. Competitors like Samsung and LG, along with a massive wave of highly aggressive Chinese manufacturers, mastered scale and completely undercut pricing. Profit margins became absolutely razor-thin. At the exact same time, technology cycles started spinning faster than ever before. And then, the ultimate disruption hit, the smartphone. Overnight, just a single piece of glass in your pocket completely absorbed entire legacy product categories. Cameras, MP3 players, portable DVD players, gone. Consumers started instantly comparing prices online, which totally destroyed decades of built-up brand loyalty. A shiny new TV was no longer a competitive moat. Panasonic was essentially trapped in a race to the bottom. Which brings us to Act 2, the B2B reinvention strategy. Now, Panasonic possessed this incredible, deeply rooted engineering talent, but they realized those capabilities needed to solve massive business problems, not just chase whatever consumer trend was hot that week. So they shifted to industrial solutions. And this is a fundamental change, right? It's moving from selling a consumer or television that might last, 5 years, to selling a global corporation an automated factory system that guarantees 99.9% uptime for a decade. To actually pull this off, Panasonic tore down its historic corporate structure. They reorganized into specialized entities like Panasonic Connect, Panasonic Industry, Panasonic Energy. They stopped being just a gadget maker and became an invisible, structural partner to global industry. You honestly can't overstate the psychological shift required to pull this off. Selling a device relies on the impulse of the retail shelf. Will the customer buy this right now? It's a transaction. But delivering an industrial solution, that requires sitting in a boardroom and asking, will this comprehensively improve the customer's operations? It moves a company from just being a simple vendor to being a deeply integrated, long-term strategic partner. Will this technology improve operations? That single question is the heartbeat of modern commerce. When you walk into a smart building and the HVAC system perfectly optimizes energy usage based on real-time foot traffic, or when an automated retail supply chain perfectly tracks inventory from a massive warehouse right down to a loading dock, that's the technology we're talking about here. It is a vastly deeper, way more lucrative value proposition than just moving hardware. Act 3. Powering the future. Nowhere is this deeper value proposition more obvious than in energy and mobility. We all know the modern world has an absolute insatiable appetite for power right now. We're in the middle of a massive global transition to electric vehicles, which requires billions of highly advanced automotive batteries. The AI boom, that's driving explosive growth in data centers, which require absolutely massive, fail-safe backup power systems. And renewable energy grids demand colossal storage systems just to stabilize intermittent wind and solar. Batteries have evolved from, those simple little components you pop into a TV remote into critical strategic infrastructure for human civilization. Panasonic recognized this tectonic shift and planted their flag right at the center of it. And they're backing this vision with staggering amounts of capital and industrial scale. To put that into perspective, in July 2025, operations are set to begin at a multi-billion-dollar factory in Kansas to produce cylindrical lithium-ion automotive batteries. This is an immense footprint. It shifts Panasonic from a legacy Japanese brand to a foundational linchpin of the entire North American electric vehicle supply chain. Their survival and their future growth isn't decided on a showroom floor anymore. It's decided in the relentless, high-volume production lines of these modern gigafactories. Act 4. The cost of change. 10,000. Yeah, that's a really heavy number. Because transformation isn't just a ribbon-cutting ceremony at a shiny new factory. It's about people, it's about legacy, it involves painful severances and closing down historic operations. In 2025, Reuters reported that Panasonic planned to cut 10,000 jobs globally just to improve operational efficiency and profitability. True reinvention requires a company to make brutal decisions about where to invest, for sure, but equally where to simplify, where to reduce, and where to exit completely. And look, fleeing the consumer electronics trap didn't magically remove uncertainty. It just introduced entirely new macroeconomic risks. In the B2B space, Panasonic is now highly exposed to fluctuating global EV demand. They have to navigate incredibly complex raw material supply chains where the price of lithium or nickel can disrupt operations overnight. They're totally subject to the winds of international trade policy, where sudden tariffs or shifts in government tax credits can drastically squeeze their margins. In fact, Panasonic actually had to cut its full-year operating profit forecast in 2025 precisely because of these automotive battery headwinds. Escaping the living room meant stepping directly into the global crossfire. Finally, let's look at 5 lessons in strategy. We can synthesize this immense journey into 5 key takeaways. Number 1, redirect your legacy strengths. Panasonic didn't forget how to make electronics. They just redirected that knowledge from TVs to gigafactories. 2, use your capabilities to create deeper value. They stopped building disposable gadgets and started building critical infrastructure. 3, deepen customer relationships. They evolved from a one-time transaction on a receipt to multi-decade B2B partnerships. 4, focus your portfolio. They made the really hard choice to let go of the low-margin businesses that made them famous in the first place. And 5, apply operational discipline. Because innovation is totally useless without the rigorous management of supply chains, tariffs, and global logistics. Transformation is all about using your past to build a fundamentally different future. Great companies cannot live forever on yesterday's categories. Panasonic is the living embodiment of this truth. They protected their heritage by aggressively abandoning the consumer trap that would have eventually destroyed them. They chose the pain of restructuring over the comfort of irrelevance, boldly building the vital engines required for the modern industrial age. Which brings us to the ultimate question for you: where do your capabilities matter next? Whether you're steering a massive organization, managing a small team, or just navigating your own career, are you stubbornly holding on to your own version of the cathode ray tube television? Or are you looking ahead, reading the market, and preparing to build your next battery factory? You've got to adapt before the market forces you to. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.